You know, our prejudices are kind of like the tips of our noses. It's hard to see it yourself unless someone shows it to you. One program is helping officers see their prejudices to build what some call racial intelligence. Joining us now is Linda Webb, the co-founder and CEO of the RITE Academy. That's RITE Academy. Also with us is Sergeant Fred Jones with the Lake County Sheriff's Office in Illinois. He's also a trainer with the RITE Academy. Good to have you both with us. And Linda, let me start with you. Give me your 20-second definition of racial intelligence. What does that mean?
Well, Joshua, we started racial intelligence after the Ferguson riots. What we did was we started looking at what's happening in the use of excessive force? What's going on? And what we realized is that police officers' emotions were in play. So racial intelligence is EI, which is emotional intelligence, which is what I, as the police officer, what am I feeling? Where am I at emotionally? And then when I engage with you, that's social intelligence. And then thirdly, racial intelligence is that I'm going to treat you fairly, no matter what your differences may be. So what we did was we started 5 years ago a cultural movement in police reform. You see, cultural diversity classes, diversity, inclusion, multicultural diversity, that's not working. That wheel is broken. We need to do something different, and we have proven that it works. Racial intelligence has been adopted into over 400 police agencies across this nation, and Fred Jones can actually speak about how it's not just a one-and-done training. This training is about a cultural movement in police reform in the walls of this agency.
Yes, Sergeant Jones, I was just about to ask you, how does RITE training work? What is the one biggest thing that I would notice? Say I've been through other kinds of diversity training. If I went through RITE training, what's the one biggest difference I would notice?
I think you would notice that this focuses on officer wellness, first and foremost. You cannot send a broken officer out there to fix a problem. I'm a firm believer that hurt people hurt people. So if you get the officer to focus on themselves, their emotions, what they're feeling at the moment, to learn how to process those things, I think it just makes for a better officer and a professional that you're sending out there in the field.
Linda, there's a term used in your training, blockout. How does blockout affect law enforcement?
Well, it's interesting because I see police chiefs across this nation right now, they're changing their policies on chokeholds and all of that. You know, you can change all the policies you want in the world. That's not going to stop a police officer when they're in blockout. When a police officer is actually in blockout, they're in rage, okay? That rage is anger. And when you're in blockout and you're actually on top of a suspect apprehending them, and you're actually in that rage, that fit of moment, you don't hear, I can't breathe. You don't hear the pedestrians or anybody or the bystanders behind you saying, hey, this isn't right, this isn't wrong. You're not hearing that. When you're in actual blockout syndrome, you're in that fit of rage. That's why it's so important to teach this in class. It's so important to teach police officers to recognize that when your police partner is going into blockout, you need to step in, tap out, and take over. Because when you get into blackout, you have no idea that you're actually in it.
Sergeant Jones, what would you say to officers who want to be part of the solution, but whose departments are not dealing with this issue? It could be kind of scary if you're an officer, especially maybe a new recruit, to even think about breaking that thin blue line. What would you say to them?
Well, it has to start with the administration, the people at the top. You have to say that, hey, I want to change that culture. You should be able to go to your administrator and talk about this, because the bottom line, people want to do better. I think they just need permission to do better. And so, you know, have that conversation, you know, with your police chief, with your sheriff, because it has to happen. You know, nothing changes unless something changes. And so when we brought this to our agency, I had deputies tell me that, you know what, this is finally something that is about us, about helping us. Because we spend years going through trauma. You know, just personally, I can remember, I drive around my own community. I can remember where that sexual battery happened. I can remember where that suicide happened.
Yeah.
And we carry that trauma for years. It's tough.
Sergeant Fred Jones and Linda Webb of RITE Training, thank you very much for creating a framework for talking about this. I think part of the problem sometimes is just not knowing what the right words are to use, but thank you for helping to try to be part of the solution, and thanks very much for talking to us today.